version. And Ezekiel prophesies what God is saying. And he says, the prince, and here prince is the Hebrew word nasi. It's actually the Aramaic word nasi, which means an exalted one, a king or a sheik. So in this particular case, the king must not take any of the people's inheritance, evicting them from their property. He is to provide an inheritance for his sons from his own property, so that none of my people will be displaced from his own property. So whether Naboth was a Levite or whether he wasn't, Naboth gave his answer. No. In almost all cases, no means no. Except when it comes to Jezebel, of course. So after he was refused, what did Ahab do? Let's go back to 1 Kings chapter 21, verse 4. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased, because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed, and Ahab turned away his face and would eat no bread. Look at this. Ahab, a grown man, was pouting that he couldn't have his way. Verse 5. But Jezebel, his wife, came to him and said unto him. Now, you know, as we read this next verse, there's one of two ways that she could have said it. She could have been sincere and caring. Why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no bread? Or she could have been hard and stern. Why is thy spirit so sad that thou eatest no bread? Like, what's the matter with you? Verse 6. And Ahab said unto her, Because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. And Jezebel his wife said unto Ahab, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? In other words, are you the king or not? Arise, eat bread, and let thy heart be merry. Now she tells him why she wants him to do this. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters, look at this, in Ahab's name, and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city, dwelling with Naboth. Now pausing here briefly, very briefly, notice that these letters were not written in her name, and these letters were not sealed with her seal. Queen or no queen, this was an illegal use of the king's authority, and it was done without his knowledge. Let's keep going. Verse 9. And Jezebel wrote in the letters, saying, Proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, and this sons of Belial is a figure of speech that means miscreants, good for nothings. So get these 2 kinds of people who will do anything for money. Set them before him to bear witness against him, saying, Thou didst blaspheme God and the king. Then carry him out and stone him, that he may die. Jezebel was manipulating the law that's found in Leviticus chapter 24. Hold that place there and let's take a look at that. Leviticus 24, verse 15. where the Lord is, and thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, whosoever curseth his God shall bear his sin. And he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. And all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well as the stranger, and he that is born in the land, when he blasphemeth the name of the Lord, shall be put to death. Now, a couple of things we can glean from this. This isn't just throwing stones at somebody. It is intended to cause their death, and that death will be verified. So you can't get hit with one good stone and then flop down and pretend that you're dead, and hopefully they'll just walk away and you can run away and get away with it. No. They made sure that you were dead. That included taking a big stone and smashing it on your head. They made sure that you're dead. So anyone that was in that position was not going to get out of it alive. Now notice also something what we just read in Leviticus chapter 24. There's no mention of blaspheming a king, only blaspheming God. And there was no king among the Israelites at the time that law was given. So this explains why Jezebel instructed them to say that Naboth blasphemed both God and Ahab. This would involve Ahab in being sinned against. Let's go on to verse 11. Back to 1 Kings chapter 21. And the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants in this city, did as Jezebel had sent unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. Now let's dig into this a little bit more. These letters gave the impression that Ahab ordered this decree, not Jezebel. Why would Jezebel involve the king and not use her own authority as queen? Well, the answer for that is, if for any reason this whole plot backfired, who would be held accountable for it? Not Jezebel. Ahab would be held accountable for it. And why? And that's because Ahab had no proof. His name was signed in the letters, not Jezebel's. And I tend to think that Jezebel knew that if Ahab were to confront and accuse her of doing this, but couldn't prove it, Ahab would suffer the consequences, and Jezebel alone would rule Israel. And this was due to the law of the false witness, which states that a lying witness was to suffer the same penalty that he wanted imposed on the other person. Let's take a look at that. Deuteronomy chapter 19, starting at verse 15. I'll be reading from the Christian Standard Bible version, which says, one witness cannot establish any iniquity or sin against a person, whatever that person has done. A fact must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. In the New Testament, we read, let everything, out of the mouth of 2 or 3, let everything be established. That is what is talking about regarding this particular verse. If anyone accuses someone of a sin or iniquity or anything, it can't just be one person making the accusation. It had to be 2 or 3. Verse 16. If a malicious witness testifies against someone accusing him of a crime, the 2 people in the dispute are to stand in the presence of the Lord before the priests and judges in authority at that time. Verse 18. The judges are to make a careful investigation, And if the witness turns out to be a liar who has falsely accused his brother, you must do to him as he intended to do to his brother. You must purge the evil from you. Then everyone else will hear and be afraid, and they will never again do any evil like this among you. Do not show pity. Life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot. See, in this case, the elders and the nobles would simply testify that they received this letter from Ahab with his signature and seal. Jezebel wouldn't have to say anything. These witnesses would be enough to convict Ahab. Besides, Ahab was intensely disliked anyway. In addition, judging from the way that he allowed Ben-Hadad to disrespect him and disrespect God the way that he did, Jezebel correctly presumed that even if Ahab figured out her scheme, he wouldn't stand up for himself and expose her. He was just that weak of a man. The prospect of obtaining the vineyard was enough to buy his silence. And what we can see again, this was a very tangled web of deceit that was spun by a master manipulator, and Jezebel covered all the bases. Just because scripture says what she did in pretty much one sentence, that doesn't mean she hastily ran in and just wrote letters real quick and 5 minutes later everything was hatched. She took some time to think about this. How she could manipulate the law. How she needed to go about signing the letters in his name with his seal and who to send them to. Evidently, those nobles and those elders within Jezreel didn't object to accusing them both. They didn't object at all. They did whatever they thought the king was saying. And as far as they knew, Ahab sent them these letters. They had no idea it came from Jezebel. She covered all the bases. And like I said, if it backfired, Ahab was the one that was going to be taking the consequences for it, not her. Very sneaky. This is another thing about a Jezebel we have to keep in mind. Master manipulator. Using other people's authority to their own advantage. And even making sure that they don't get caught in that scheme, that they walk away scot-free. It's a no-lose situation that they're spinning. So as